Ever since shelter in place, I've had a lot of free time to do the things that I always wanted to do, but haven't had the real time to do it. And now that I have more time on my hands, I've been trying to read more books and do some book reviews. And last week we talked about The End of Marketing by Carlos Gil. This week we are talking The Age of Influence, The Power of Influencers to Elevate Your Brand by Neal Schaffer. Now, I met Neal years ago at a conference in San Francisco, and I've been following his work for several years now. And Neal and I have a very special bond, one that you really wouldn't understand unless you are real, lifelong, proven Lakers fan. So now that I've got that out of the way, let's dig into the book. The first thing I want to point out is that this book reads like an academic paper. It's linear, it's structured, it's process-oriented, very much like a college textbook. Now, he starts the book answering the question, why? Why influencer marketing? Why is it important for my brand? And goes on to cite several studies of brands who have seen really strong ROI from influencer marketing programs, as well as studies that show how brands were planning to invest and increase their investments in influencer marketing in 2020. Now, certainly that's going to change as COVID-19 has come upon us. So we'll see how that plays out. But for the most part, if you talk to marketers from last year, the plan was to increase and double down on influencer marketing for both consumer brands as well as B2B. He then moves into part of the book where he discusses different ways to engage with influencers. In fact, he goes into specific detail about 16 different ways to do so, which I thought was pretty interesting. Part of the section also highlights employees as influencers, something that I've been talking about for many years now, which I thought was a really great addition for marketers, because when you can connect employees and executives with third-party influencers and facilitate engagement, that's always a benefit for the business. He then transitioned into the differences between paid and organic influencer marketing, talking about the different considerations on when to do it, when not to do it, how different companies are hiring influencers to participate in company events. He talked about the FTC guidelines and just the different considerations that brands need to think about as they begin to plan and execute their influencer programs. My favorite part of the book is when he talked about the art and science of identifying the right influencers. And if you know me, I talk a lot about this in previous videos. So it was really close to my heart, just really listening to and reading what he was talking about as it relates to understanding the right tools, which platforms to use to identify the right influencers, how to measure the effectiveness and the ROI of influencer programs. Some of the platforms that he mentions are Analytica, Tracker, and some social listening tools like Brandwatch and others. And so it was a really good synopsis and summary of what's available to marketers as they are looking to identify the right influencers to work with their brand. And then he ends the book with some very actionable steps on how you or me can become influencers by building our personal brand through content and engagement and other factors. And before we close today, I want to talk just about a few case studies that Neal highlights, more on the B2B side. One being an unnamed company in the unified communication space that partnered with influencers and grew contract revenue by 30% a year. Pretty significant if you ask me. Now, unified communications is like voice over IP. It's like Zoom, RingCentral, other companies which rely on communicating with other business through the internet. The other case study was from VMware and the work they did with their annual conference, VMworld. They partnered with Analytica, which is an influencer management software platform. I've mentioned it in several videos before, even earlier in this video. And they invited 75 influencers to this event in Barcelona. They did tweet chats, created unique content and engagement. They were kind of like on-the-ground reporters on behalf of VMware. And through that program, they reached 1.3 million people, which I thought was pretty significant. Most of the other case studies were focused on consumer brands like Lord & Taylor, All Bar One, Mockberg, and the Hawaiian Tourism Bureau. Now, the book is very relevant to most audiences from the C-suite, middle management, agencies, and even college students. The only area of feedback that I wish Neal would have spent more time in is in B2B. He does sprinkle some examples with IBM and VMware, as I mentioned, but I feel like as a marketer in B2B, there's not a ton of meat in there for me to go out and create a program with. So other than that, I highly recommend this book. It's 5 out of 5 stars. You can get it on Amazon and most other online retailers. And I would highly suggest you also look for Neal online. He's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. He's very knowledgeable, very his content is very educational. So I highly recommend you give him a follow, buy his book, let him know that I told you about it. And that's all I have today. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your feedback, sharing, and engagement. Please be safe. Please be healthy. And I'll see you next time.